spite of our mechanical magnificence.
Up in the sky! Look! It's a bird! It's a plane!
Todd Vandenberg.
They're with him under the hat.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
And Rob Steele.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain!
As you can imagine, they don't let us out much.
All my filth is in alphabetical order. This, for example, was under H for toy.
Movie reviews.
So you're here to save the world.
Movie news.
Dad, Tom Cruise won't come out of the closet.
And the occasional rumor or TV news.
I object to all this sex on the television. I keep falling off.
Oh, that's not right.
God, I love my work.
And to make a long story short, one by one you all arrived.
It took us a while to get there, but we did. Hi, Todd. Welcome to the news intervals.
We did indeed. Wow, it's still running. That's got a long
fade.
tag at the end, but that's okay. Yes, hi.
It's a ramp. It's an
How are you?
ramp.
You know what's really cool is that's true. Sex on the television can leave weird bruises, so I love that particular segment there.
Especially now, because you got the flat screens and...
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Nasty. Depending on, well, never mind. Now we can say it. This is R-rated, maybe, whatever it is. Yes, welcome
We'll find
to
out.
The relaunch. I would like to
Not a
thank
reboot.
people who are listening. Not a reboot, not a reimagination. Just here we are. That's about it.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So, you are listening to, if you're sad, and you will be sad if you're listening to Cinema Savants. I'm Todd. The other gentleman is Rob. Well, I shouldn't have said the other gentleman. The gentleman is Rob. I'm Todd. And we thank you for listening to us. We're going to start by just kind of introducing some of our likes and dislikes so you'll know exactly where we're coming from. I thought we'd throw out a few of our favorite movies, not like this is our list of our top 10, because that changes all the time. And we'll get to that at some point. But just to me, the definition of what's a favorite movie, you have it on Blu-ray, you've got it on DVD, you've got it on 16 millimeter because you're old, maybe even Super 8, and it comes on TV and you watch it anyway. And the first thing that comes to my mind is Cool Hand Luke. I mean, I've seen that movie I don't know how many times. And if it comes up on TV, if I'm flipping through the listings, doesn't matter what point in the film, I turn it on and I watch to the end.
I guess I'm the same way with the original Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, I actually like movie series. But, yeah. Although sometimes I think some of them go a bit long. The Lord of the Rings movies, it doesn't matter where they are in the series, I'll sit down and watch it if it's on. And it's on quite frequently lately. So.
Oh, it is. It is. Now, do you watch the Hobbitses, the Nasty Hobbitses, as part of that?
I do. I consider that all part of the same series.
Oh, Rob, you actually watch those movies?
It kind of is. I enjoy them. I think it's fun.
It's part of the series, kind of, but that's like 147 hours you're never getting back, Rob, every time you sit down for one of them.
I didn't say I started at the beginning. It's
true.
One of those, I'm getting ready for bed. All right, I'm not quite asleep. What's on clip? Oh, look, it's the last 2.5 days of The Hobbit. I'll watch that as I go to sleep.
And I really like you brought... Well, that would put me to sleep pretty quickly, but I really enjoy the fact that you brought up The Hobbit, because I don't care for any of the 3 Hobbit films, which to me should have been one fairly short film, because that's what the story is. But the fact that you enjoy the films, and you didn't say that's like your greatest film ever by any means, but
no.
That's one of the things that's very interesting about film art in general, is it's the same piece of work, and two people can look at it and have completely different reactions to it. And that's part of the fun of watching movies. Rob, for instance, thinks Adam Sandler is a god and can do no wrong.
What?
I know that was a lie.
On that one.
Yeah, I know that's a lie. I know that was evil of me to say.
Don't even go there.
Yeah, it's funny how people and talents and actors can kind of lose their mojo. To me, he's certainly one of them, because his early stuff, I love. The Wedding Singer is another one of those movies for me. If it comes on, I'm going to watch it. I love The Wedding Singer. Anything the guy has done, like in the past 10, 15, I don't know, maybe 80 years, no. I will turn off the trailer.
Conversely, if I see any Adam Sandler movie on, I won't watch anything within 10 channels of it.
Because you're afraid it's tainted. That makes sense.
I'm not an Adam Sandler fan. Although I will agree with you on the Hobbit thing that I think it could have been done in 2 movies, 2 considerably shorter movies, instead of the 3 17-day movies.
The final movie, to me, it's just boring. You know, the Battle of the Five Armies. I don't care who those 5 armies are. You know, it's just I just watch it and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is cool, but I've seen this done before. And it was absolutely to me just a money grab. Yes, one of the other things you've got.
Oh yeah, one of the other things I've got is the ye olde animated version. I don't know if you've ever seen the animated Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, for the Battle of the Five Armies, it was basically, you know, it's not Frodo, it's Bilbo wanders off and gets hit on the head, and we don't see the Battle of the Five Armies because he's unconscious during it.
Right.
And you know what? I was kind of halfway expecting them to do that in the movies, and they did not. They said, hey, let's actually see the whole thing because we've got a budget.
Exactly. Rankin Bass, the old Hobbit movie. I enjoyed that version better. Actually did. Even though it's not particularly nice to look at.
Even though the singer sounds like a goat. Stevie Nicks' older brother, I guess. Yeah, it just doesn't. Hey, she's a goat. Anyway, I've tried showing that to my kids, and they're like, we kind of like it, but the singer, no. He's got to. If he starts singing, fast forward it, Dad. Okay, fine. Click.
Yeah, that's one thing that's always would have been good to edit out of any of even the really wonderful Lord of the Rings films. The songs are kind of. Didn't really care to read them, and I didn't really care to hear them.
The first one they did in what was it? In the bar in Hobbiton, because it was short. I didn't mind that, but when was it Merry or Pippin that had to sing that song at the end that was really slow when he's wearing the armor and everything, and you go, oh, as if the movie hadn't slowed down enough, you sang that. Oh dear.
Quite true. The one flaw the serious flaw in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, to me, is the 17 endings they had at the Return of the King. They could have cut that a bit.
He kept going. It's over. We can get up and crap, but they're not done. Yeah.
I'm surprised. There's probably 6 or 7 post-credits endings too, and by then everyone was unconscious and had just given up. That was a little much. Other than that, I love those movies.
One of the other movies this is one of those movies that if it comes on, I'll watch it, and it had multiple endings, but that was okay. Was Clue.
That's a different kind of multiple ending, right?
That is a different. If you weren't around I don't know if you even caught this in theater. It had they filmed 3 separate endings to this whodunit based on the board game. But in theater, you got one of the 3 endings.
Exactly.
And you didn't know until you sat through the whole movie which ending you were going to get.
As far as I know, that's the only movie that's ever been done like that, where there are multiple endings for different audiences, just at random. I mean, that's pretty cool. That is pretty.
I thought that was brilliant. And then it comes out on videotape, and eventually DVD and Blu-ray and whatever, and they put all the endings together.
Right.
So if you go to the theater, damn it, it's the second ending again.
You have to drive 800 miles to watch another ending.
Third ending.
Which is really smart. I don't know how they worked the release, and I don't know how long it was out, but what would have been clever, and they may have done this again, is switched out the endings in each market, like after a week or 2 weeks, and say, oh, come see this ending. But they didn't promote it that way, so they probably didn't do it that way.
Right.
Now with digital projection, they could have certainly done that. Now with digital projection, it'd be much easier, but probably would have been rather costly to distribute it that way.
The bad news, I suppose, about Clue is, guess what's being rebooted or remade or whatever.
Oh God, why not?
It's never going to work.
Oh wait,
because
you don't mean Clue. You mean Shoots and
Ladders. Battleship? No. That first
right.
cast. That first cast just blended together so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, it was a kind of a magical thing. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the movie. It's terribly silly, but it works beautifully.
Right, very fun movie.
You're not going to get that kind of movie magic again, no matter how much you plan it, because I don't think it was the planning that did it. It was a magical mixing.
That happens. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not in the it. They may plan for it to happen, but if we were talking pre-production, because we're cool like that, we have pre-production meetings, which for about 5 minutes. We were jabbering. It was we did go-to meeting, except we didn't use that, and they're not sponsoring us, so I didn't mention them. We were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and to me that's one of those films where obviously they wanted it to work out, but that cast really brought it together, and obviously the director and the writers, but they really made that movie work. I mean, that movie worked much better than it had any right to. That's one of those films where everything just synced in. And it unfortunately doesn't happen that often.
I think the first Avengers movie was like that for recent stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
They all come together and go, hey.
And you can tell they have fun. You can tell they have fun in the film.
Exactly.
Captain America: Civil War. I mean, they appeared to enjoy that process because it shows on the screen where the entertainment value comes through. Just put it that way. Even though they're at each other's throats, it's still it's an entertaining film. A reboot, relaunch. We'll talk about box office briefly. Magnificent Seven came out. Didn't see it. Planned to, but didn't see it. Made $35 million, which is kind of underperforming. Storks came in second. Sully held in at third. Sully's made a little over $92 million. Bridget Jones's Baby, Snowden. Its fall box office has been pretty slow. I think they're running about 20. This weekend ran about 25% under last year's. The money aspect of films, it's interesting. It's not the be all end all. What's interesting is the film good? I mean, another one of those movies I really like is Chappie, and I think I'm like one of 8 people in the world that really liked Chappie. That did nothing at the box office, but I really enjoy that film, so it doesn't matter that much to me.
There was a robot involved.
Yes, exactly. There was a robot involved.
I'm sorry, I vaguely remember that movie existing. Sorry.
The fact that you even recognize the title at all is surprising. Seriously, because a lot of people would go, "What are you talking about? What movie?" Without any prompt. So you know what movie I'm talking about. That in itself is surprising. But I caught Sully, and I will be surprised if it does well in award season. I mean, Clint Eastwood directs it, and of course Tom Hanks plays Sullenberger. And just because of those names, they're going to get some nominations. And I'm not saying the movie's bad, but there's not a lot that happens, which I know sounds crazy considering the subject matter. Oh, the guy lands. He makes a point of saying, "We didn't crash. We landed. We did a water landing." And that's exciting, and et cetera, et cetera. But there really just isn't any character arc. I mean, he goes into it as this guy who is just the basic stoic guy who does his job, and he comes out of it at the end as the stoic basic guy who does his job. He doesn't want the title of a hero. He was just doing his job. And so that's a flaw to me, and they shouldn't change the story, but it's almost kind of wonder why they even made it.
Based on a real story, so can't really change that much of it.
Right, exactly. But, and the one thing that I think they moved is because the big drama is, because we know what happens, the big drama is the National Safety Board does a study, and they're trying to figure out what caused the accident, and Sully is saying, well, we had total engine failure, both engines, blah blah blah, and they're saying, well, no, this is what the information we have shows. That's not accurate. So they're doing that. That's the big dramatic arc is that investigation, how that's going to turn out, and the fact that they cast, and I don't have the actors' names in front of me, but the two lead actors on the safety board, they're guys who typically play villainous characters, or at best ne'er-do-wells. And so they're kind of cartoonish villains, and that's obviously not what those people are doing. I mean, they say that we're only here to find out the truth, but that's not the vibe you get from the film, and that's not the vibe you're supposed to get from the film. You're supposed to get, oh, they're picking on Sully and they're trying to ruin his career and blah blah blah, which is not what actually happened. And it was really disappointing to me that they didn't have more sympathetic actors playing those roles. That would have made it more realistic instead of making it like good versus evil. You know, and that's not the truth. You know.
No.
So to me, that's what made the film disappointing. Is there's really not much that happens other than everything you already know. So it's kind of 2 hours of, well, great. Tom Hanks is good in it as portraying this stoic guy who does his job, but it's kind of like, so what? They didn't need Tom Hanks to play that role. There are 100 actors who could have played that role the way it was written.
They could have gotten his volleyball from the other movie.
That would have been more fun. Would have been much more fun if he'd had Wilson with him.
And see, you're talking about this, and as soon as you said, I don't have the cast list, I can pull that up. And so I pulled up the cast list, and I'm looking at it and thinking, I don't know why I did that, because I don't know who the characters are he's talking about, so I can't tell him which actors but the actors.
And it's...
If I were to guess, I'd say Aaron Eckhart was one of them.
Aaron Eckhart is one of the good guys. He's his co-pilot.
Oh, who's
also he's just there to look handsome and say, yep, Sully, you're a great guy. The guy who played Randall Flagg in the Stand TV adaptation, Jamie, can't think of his last name. He's one of the guys on Jamie Sheridan. He's one of the guys on the National Transportation Safety Board. So he's one of the. I would
guess Mike O'Malley then.
Quote unquote, I believe that's the other one. Quote unquote bad guys, and you know, and by the end of the film, you know, they're not bad guys. They were just trying to get to the truth, but that's not how they work it in the film itself, you know. And it was just, to me, that was just kind of a cheat. To me, it's kind of pointless to make the film. I mean, it would have been better just to watch a documentary about Sully instead of this, because there's just not much going on. I think a documentary
in this case would work better. It's
it's
got the one action scene, but that happens at the beginning.
Yeah, well, and then they go through the action again later, and it's, you know, it's, there's some tension because, oh, you know, are they going to get rescued? But it's like most people know they got rescued, so that really dilutes the tension. You know, I mean, there's a big moment there when he's waiting for the passenger count. How many did they find? Because he really needs to know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, actually, he's waiting for the manifest because it's a domestic flight and they didn't have a passenger count going on. So they're waiting to make sure that the number of people they pulled out of the water and off the plane equaled the manifest. So, but there's not a lot of tension there because we know what happened. You know, so it's...
To me, this movie was kind of like... it's kind of like Titanic, which I did not go see because I would have known going in, hey, boat's going to sink. I'm pretty sure most of the characters are going to be dead. I don't want to see it. So, you know, I did not go see Titanic. It's similar with Sully. Do I know all the details of what happened? No. Do I have a general idea? Yes. Was I on the plane? No. So my interest level, not there. Sorry.
And to be honest, if we weren't doing this show, I probably wouldn't have watched it. And I like Tom Hanks a lot, but it's just... Why watch this movie? You know, they would have been much better if they'd done a fictionalized version, seriously, and just used that as a basis, because then they could have had some dramatic arc going on instead of, well, we know this happens, we know this happens, we know his reputation. There's no suspense in the entire film.
How about is Tom Hanks doing bosom buddies The Next Generation? That would have been awesome. More of a thing.
That would have been awesome. If they had mixed this with Airplane, that would have been nice.
See, there. Now, of course, someone's going to call in and complain, hey, you're making fun of a big, bad event that happened, and yeah. Anyway.
I wish they would. That would be funny.
Sure, we can do that.
We can do that. Summer movies. Do we care about the summer movies that have come out so far? I've got a list of several We've been talking about relaunches and reboots and blah, 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 and there have been a lot this summer, and most of them have not worked.
No.
Star Trek Beyond, which I really enjoyed, using basic math of you look at their budget and you double the budget, which that's supposed to cover distribution and advertising and et cetera, blah, 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 blah. If you look at that compared to their worldwide gross, they're still $34 million behind for making a profit on Star Trek Beyond. So it's not worked. Ghostbusters.
Weirdly, I have a quick note for Star Trek Beyond.
Please do.
I logged into my Twitter account just before we got on the show. Star Trek Beyond is now following me. I don't know why.
Awesome. That's
It
awesome.
said Star Trek is following you. I'm like, no, I watch them. What are you talking about? Just thought I'd throw that out because I thought it was kind of cool.
That's quite interesting. Ghostbusters, which I watched and I enjoyed. It's not as good as the first, but I think it's much better than Ghostbusters 2, which is kind of a crappy movie, to be honest. But again,
enjoyed
Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2, did you? See, this is why we have this show, Rob, because some people are weird, and we don't know which one of us is. Could be
me.
both of us, actually. Could be both of us.
No
Ghostbusters is $70 million in the hole at this point, and of course, it's still out. But the issue with Ghostbusters to me is not that it has female leads. For God's sakes, they all do a fine job. To me, the problem is the script. There are certain aspects that are good. Leslie Jones, who I typically don't care for her that much, she was really good in this film. She had good lines, and she did a good job with them. Kate McKinnon is absolutely hilarious in this movie. She would have fit in beautifully in the first Ghostbusters movie. Great role, really well acted, terrific lines. But Ms. McCarthy and Miss Huig, they don't have many good lines. They just don't. They have a lot of non sequiturs, and they just, to me, and again, that's just my opinion, but they fall flat. The script needed to be much, much better, and that's the problem with Ghostbusters. To me, that's why it's not been a huge, huge hit like they expected. It has nothing to do with the performers. And again, McCarthy and Wig, they're both really good in what they have to work with, but they just don't have much to work with.
Right.
It just didn't work. You know, if they gave way too many funny lines to McKinnon and to Jones. There are some nice cameos, and that's fun. Everybody who's in the first Ghostbusters movie who was alive is in the second one in varying cameo sections. Bill Murray, I can't tell if he's being Bill Murray or if he's sleepwalking because he doesn't give a damn. And sometimes it's hard to tell with Bill Murray.
I'm going to get the second one.
Might be. And again, it's just a cameo, and which is the same for any of them. But it is nice that the major players, they're all in it at some point. It's worth seeing, definitely. But it's, again...
not necessarily in a theater.
Exactly. Catch it on one of your favorite streaming services. Or, well, don't download it illegally. That's horrible. But catch it on something else. Or catch it in a second-run theater where it's going to cost you $2 to see it.
It sounds kind of like... sounds kind of like what they're doing with, and this was another one of those summer movies, the X-Men series.
Mm-hmm.
This time it's Alpacalypse, and I'm not pronouncing it properly because they've already picked up the character. I don't have a problem with a majority of the actors who have been in the X-Men series. It's the scripts they're doing the best they can with the scripts they've got to work with.
Right.
And I think, for me, I collected the comic book for 20 years. I know the stories. They're not in the big screen.
No.
Some of the characters got rearranged, and I understand that there have to be some changes between the comics and the movies because some of the stuff that happens in the books just won't work. And so you have to, do some tweaking and, this actress can't make it, so we're going to have to replace this character with that character. And most of the time it's fine. But for me, with the X-Men series, it's just been one absolute horrific decision after another as far as the stories are concerned.
I agree. The last X-Men movie that I really enjoyed was X2, and even there, they were already way off track with the characters.
Oh, very much.
It just continues to get worse as they try to retcon what they've already done, which is why they've kind of rebooted the whole thing with Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. I mean, it's made a good chunk of money. By my estimate, like 180 some million. I mean, that's profit. That's not gross. That's after everything else. So that's fine. It's not what they were wanting, obviously, because it doesn't measure up nearly close to the Marvel Avengers movies or like the last Captain America, which really is an Avengers film.
Right. Avengers 3, I guess it was.
Yeah. Apocalypse is just, the character himself is like, it's just so random. I mean, he's vaguely blue. And he's got some interesting powers, but he's not Apocalypse from the comics at all.
No, there's a picture that I found of a guy who went to, and it wasn't even Comic-Con in San Diego. It was one of the other minor con. And he dressed up exactly like Apocalypse from the books. And you go, that's the way you do it. And then you look at... I've seen the commercials for Alpacalypse. I have not seen the movie itself, but I've seen the commercials and the trailers. And the character in this looks like somebody tried to make Jeremy Clarkson into a Smurf.
Yeah.
And no. and he's the guy who was I've forgotten the character's name. He was in the last Star Wars movie as the pilot guy. Same dude.
Oh, yeah. Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
His name escaped in an X-Wing. It went that way.
It does happen. The problem with the movie to me is, again, the plot, the writing. It's just there are characters running around on screen, and they've got motivation, but it's so artificial. That's what happens with a lot of these movies. Like, again, Apocalypse, it's made a lot of money. It's been successful, but to me, it doesn't work, and it didn't work with a lot of people. Legend
I think
of
it's
Tarzan,
because a lot of people didn't know better.
That's true. Legend of Tarzan didn't work for a lot of people.
No.
That movie was boring. Which, how can you make a Tarzan movie and it's boring? Independence Day Resurgence, it's done okay as far as it's actually made some money. But again, I don't care anything about any of those characters. Yeah, I mean, it was just it's like a walkthrough. They almost, like you mentioned, fan films. This is almost what a lot of these films are like. It's just like, do you not understand? There needs to be some compelling motivation. And a lot of these, they're using, it's the end of the world, but that's shorthand for motivation now in movies. I mean, they're all about the end of the world. That's why I think the Captain America Civil War worked so well. It's not about the end of the world. It's about the end of the team, which is much more compelling because they did
personal.
Exactly. They did enough work to build up those characters that you can relate to those characters, that they're meaningful, and then the team gets broken apart. That hurts. I mean, it's certainly not like you're watching War of the Roses, although actually kind of is like watching War of the Roses. But it's not Kramer versus Kramer, but it's got more in common with that than it does with X-Men Apocalypse or Independence Day Resurgence. I mean, how often can you see holes blasted into the world? It just becomes old hat after a time. It's lazy. It's all it is. It's just lazy.
Yeah. Although one of the movies, and you put a list together, and I put a list together, and look at all these overlaps. The Alice Through the Looking Glass. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it yet. I will admit it, and I didn't realize it had lost this much money. What is down like $40 million or something. It looked good, and I'm wondering if it was just a bad. That one I think is more of a bad release date. So I remember it being up against something else that was big.
And that
I don't remember what. Yeah.
And
it's just
Disney
a matter
had
of
a
bad
tremendous
timing
year. could be. Disney's had an amazing year. I mean, you count the Marvel as part of the Disney universe, but I mean, they had the Jungle Book, they've had Zootopia, Finding Dory. I mean, they've just been blowing it out of the park for the most part. But Alice Through the Looking Glass is not part of that. And again, I mean, this is just, it's made $298.8 million worldwide. Budget was 170, and using the shorthand, the industry says basically double the budget, and that's what the real cost is. So that's where these numbers came from, the minus the 41 million it's lost. Again, that's a rough estimate. That might be off. But it's certainly accurate to say it's nowhere near the success that they expected. No. That part is true. We talked about Ben-Hur a little bit last week, and just, to me, I don't understand why they made this to begin with, because who was clamoring for a remake of Ben-Hur? Well, I guess I know is because the religious box office has done relatively well, but those are all low-budget movies. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Noah did not do particularly well. Exodus, Gods and Kings did not do particularly well. Ben-Hur, though, is absolutely tanking. The thing cost $100 million to make, and it's made $86 million worldwide. I mean, it's taken a huge bath.
That's not good.
Yeah, and
one of the wheels
fell
off before it took off.
Yeah, and I mean, do you know anybody who would be remotely interested in watching that? That's
not in a theater.
Yeah, that's why would you remake Ben-Hur? Just makes no sense.
Mean,
but
some of these movies are going to recoup some of their money in the aftermarket of, well, not so much DVD sales, but iTunes and selling it to Netflix and whatever. So
exactly,
I'm not too broken up about everybody losing the money because they're going to get it back eventually.
Sure.
But yeah, in the theater, you'd like to see them make a little bit, but they have to have something there for us to go see, and that's not what they're doing right now.
Right, and I've talked a lot about Batman v Superman. I'm not going to talk much more about it, but it's got to be worrisome to Warner's that Suicide Squad. They got to be happy about Suicide Squad, absolutely.
Right.
But Suicide Squad has turned a bigger profit at this point than Batman v Superman. You've got, again, that's got to make them really happy that it did that. But on the flip side, wow, that was your big punch, and a bunch of second-rate characters outperformed your big three. That's got to be concerning.
A little bit, although I don't know if you've seen the trailer for the Justice League movie that is forthcoming.
I have.
I like it. I think it looks good. It looks like there's enough of it in it that makes you kind of go, I think they realized you need to put some fun in the movie.
I do too. My concern is that we're seeing all the fun. That's my big concern.
Yeah. The best parts are in the trailer. Oh, crap.
Hopefully, though, they got the message. Because Suicide Squad is a lighter film than Batman v Superman. Not that it's...
Which is weird, because the characters are so not.
Exactly.
But
I saw Suicide Squad, and it's okay. I mean, it's another one of these summer movies that's like, it's there. To me, the fact it was absolutely wrong for them to cast Will Smith in the movie. Because, like you said, these guys are villains. And they keep on showing you, here's a scene that shows Will Smith's really a good guy. He's a really good guy. Even though he's a cold-blooded assassin who is more than happy to kill people for money. No, he's not. Look at this. Look at this. Like, don't do that. Have the guts to let him be the character or get someone else. That was very, very... It pissed me off.
One of the weird things about the Suicide Squad was that they had already put them in the TV version.
Mm-hmm.
They had popped up on Arrow, and they didn't. They decided, no, we're going to completely distance ourselves. So they killed off all the characters on Arrow so they could put them in this movie.
And you mentioned the TV version.
Sense, really.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And there's not. Boy, the TV version and the movie version of DC, they're just so disjointed by their choice, obviously. And the thing is, when I talk to my kids about it, my kids are major fans of comic book films, et cetera, et cetera. But it's so annoying that Warner's has this huge huge log of scripts that are ready to go. All they have to do is look at their Justice League cartoon or Justice League Unlimited. They got tons of scripts that worked fantastically. Absolutely. I mean, that stuff is excellent. And the fact that they continue to come up with the scripts, these things that they think are scripts, is just mind-boggling. It's really, really weird.
Even the animated DC movies are doing really well, even if they are, straight to DVD or whatever. The stories on them are excellent.
The Flashpoint Paradox movie, which I'm sure it's on Hulu or Netflix or whatever. I've probably seen that thing like 5 times. That's what the Justice League movie should be. My God, that is so well done. Even Justice League War, which is kind of an alternate universe kind of thing, it's still much better than anything that they put on the big screen out lately. I'm talking about.
That actually comes out, if you follow the comics, it gets really weird. DC reboots itself every 20, 30 years. And the way they rebooted itself, well, hang on a minute. The way they rebooted it last time was with Flashpoint.
Right.
And that led into what they called the New 52, which is what they're on now. And that's where Justice League War came in. That's their reboot in the animated version that goes along with the comic version. However, the New 52 hasn't taken off as well as they'd liked it to.
Right.
So they've rebooted again, and that would make it twice in a decade, which is kind of weird for them.
Yeah, it is.
But, sorry, I threw some comic book news in.
No, that's awesome. I love comic book news. It is. It's so frustrating because they've got so many terrific properties. And if they get the right people in charge, the Batman trilogy I thought was terrific. Those were great.
I liked the first 2. I didn't really care for the third one.
You're
talking the most recent one.
Yes, exactly, the most recent one. And Dark Knight Rises, it's not the of the 3, it's certainly not the best. I mean, the best is the Dark Knight. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't think the Dark Knight's not the best of the 3. But I like the Dark Knight Rises. It has issues, certainly has issues. The biggest one to me is just how they wanted Bane's voice to come through so muffled. As I get the idea, but when the audience has a hard time understanding what the character is saying, it's hard to connect to the character. They just went overboard.
Version. They never released the original version, which was even harder to understand.
That's just
I had a
makes
clip
no
of
sense.
it somewhere. If I can find it, I'll play it next week or something. It's horrible. It's Darth Vader with duct tape on his mouth. It does not work at all.
It would have been fine to have him say a few lines for that, and then have it fixed, and that would give you the feeling you're supposed to, whatever feeling you're supposed to get by the fact you can't understand the damn guy, and then it would fix it. So that was a really odd choice, and that's certainly not the only flaw in the movie. There's plenty of flaws in the movie, but to me, compared to the Superman films, it's better. Your big flaw?
My big flaw with
not yours.
Dark Knight
movie.
Rises.
Yes.
was where the hell is everybody else? Gotham has been taken over for X number of months or a year or whatever. Where the hell is Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Constantine, Swamp Thing? Where the hell did everyone just kind of stood back and went, oh, well, Bane took over Gotham. I guess we'll sit here in Metropolis or Central City or whatever. And Batman's on his own. Screw him. That was my biggest issue with that movie.
They're not part of the universe at that point.
There's a hell of an intro point.
Right, exactly. And it would have made sense to have something in there to explain that. Would have made much more sense. That was one of the biggest problems I had with Batman Superman is now all of a sudden, after decades, Metropolis and Gotham are right across the bay from each other. Like, when the hell did that happen? And why does it have to happen? I mean, you've got a guy who has a jet plane and another guy who can fly. Is it really necessary that they're right across from the bay? So there were so many flaws in that movie.
I had always viewed Metropolis and Gotham as kind of like New York and Boston.
And to me, Gotham is Chicago.
Similar,
but regardless, they're not close to each other. They never have been.
No. Now it's more like San Francisco and Oakland, and you kind of go,
exactly,
really?
Exactly. It's supremely stupid.
I can see Russia from my porch. No, that's the wrong thing.
A lot of problems with that movie, but anyway, we've talked about this streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything in particular you're binging on? Hopefully not at this very moment, because that would be weird because you're on the show. But
right, my binging at the moment, I'm actually rewatching Deep Space Nine.
Oh, cool.
And as always, I'm almost perpetually binging on Top Gear episodes. Before Clarkson Hammond in May, not whoever the hell is on the new version.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't the new version. No one watches that. They don't even watch it.
Well, they've already fired Chris Evans.
Yep.
So he's not coming back. And there's talk of getting rid of Joey, whatever his name is.
Buttafuoco.
Close enough. But a what up? No. Yeah, I'm not really doing a whole lot of binging of late. But I did notice the titles leaving Netflix starting, I guess, next week. And there's a couple on this list that I think are a bit surprising, really. Because the Back to the Future trilogy can leave. I've never cared for those movies. That's fine. Let them be gone. But things like Beverly Hills Cop 2, not 1 and 3, or not the whole series. It just says 2 is leaving. I don't know if 1 and 3 are already gone.
That's odd.
The original Exorcist, which that seems like, I'm not into that genre of movie really, but that seems like it would be kind of a staple for people who are,
It probably would have cost them $50 to keep it. So, and I actually did watch that just last week, the original Exorcist, just because the TV adaptation was coming on, and I wanted to refresh my memory for the 87th time.
One thing that surprised me, not that it was leaving Netflix, but mainly that it exists. But it's leaving Netflix, and that is season 2 of Nazi Mega Weapons.
Oh no!
Well, but
I'll have to turn on the TV right now.
That's a show?
Season 2? I'm sure it was from the History Channel.
Season 1. Oh, we can't get rid of season 1. But Nazi Mega Weapons. Who knew it was a show? I know I didn't.
How many mega weapons did they have that you needed a second season? Unless these are BBC shows, in which case a season could be 3 shows. But this is probably History Channel.
Yeah, there was the missiles, the tanks, the soldiers, and in season 2, Steve and and Gunther. Gunther was a secret weapon.
Gunther.
Yeah, I just work here. I don't know.
Steve turns out, as you mentioned, comic books. Turns out Steve has been a secret weapon all these decades.
Who knew?
That burns.
Oh,
wow,
yes.
that hurts. That hurts. I don't think we're going to see that in the TV universe. The movie universe. That would be weird.
That would be weird. Actually, we've mentioned the Avengers a few times. Something leaving Netflix middle of next month is the Marvel's Avengers Assemble Season 1, which just came out last year. And that seems like an odd time to get rid of. I mean, it's still a big thing.
That is odd. I've never really been that impressed with Marvel's animation on television.
No.
DC
really.
they've done a much, much better job, which is weird because the animation on TV is it's strange. Marvel does, they're okay. DC does a brilliant job. You go to the movie theater and it's the opposite. It's really odd. They need to have
it's really weird.
They need to work with each other a little better. And they would have probably what would happen is movie DC would take over the TV division and wreck it, and the converse would happen, and then suddenly the Marvel movies would suck. So let's not do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Although, good news for Netflix, there is still potential life in the Young Justice series. There's talk of, who is it, Peter David is supposed to be being put in charge of a third season of Young Justice, which I think would be awesome, because if you've never seen the series, that is probably the best. I think it's the best of the televised DC series. Everybody is in it at one point or another.
And they're well represented.
They are.
The characters are the way they're supposed to be. They're not like, oh, let's turn Red Tornado into, I tell you what, let's make him a deli worker and let's make him blue. I mean, that's kind of what the movies would do with him, I think. But they're all really well portrayed. They're the way the characters are supposed to be. They're true to the characters, which is nice.
And there's progression. Dick Grayson starts out as Robin, ends up as Nightwing, and you go, ooh, really? Cool.
Which is very cool. Very cool. Yes. One of the things that I will be binging on in about, 5 days is Luke Cage.
Luke Cage?
Looking that should, as good as the Marvel series on Netflix have been, because the first season of Daredevil I thought was great. And then Jessica Jones came out and was like, wow, I only thought Daredevil was good. Holy crap. Then the second season of Daredevil came out and lifted up the bar again because they put the Punisher on. So I'm
getting his own spin-off series.
Yes. I'm really looking forward to Luke Cage because, wow. I mean, those are so good. Those are just so good. I just wish, well, I'm not going to say anything. If you haven't seen Jessica Jones, watch Jessica Jones. And that's all I'm going to say. But you know what I'm talking about when I said I just wish. But, man, those are excellent, excellent shows. And you got 5 days. That's plenty of time to quit your job and sit at home and watch Daredevil Season 1, then Jessica Jones, and then Daredevil Season 2. And then you'll be ready for Luke Cage. And Night Nurse, who will be
eventually by Iron Fist is coming too.
Right. And then the Defenders. Although maybe the Punisher will come out before Defenders.
I think they've switched it so that the Defenders is coming out before Iron Fist. I haven't figured that out yet, though.
No, don't do that. That'll be awful. Don't do that.
I don't want them to, because I've always liked Iron Fist. And I'm curious to see how they're doing it how they would do it in a TV series.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be good.
I think they will do a terrific job.
There's no reason to think they won't.
Yeah, exactly. They sure do, which is, how do you feel, and this is not quite movies, but since we're talking about television, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., how do you feel about Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I've seen the clip of him showing up. That's about it. I actually don't have any objections to it. I did not care for the movies, not because I didn't like the character, but and it's not because I don't like Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is fine in some places, but not as Ghost Rider, because Ghost Rider to me has always been a character in the human form anyway, a character who's what started out in his teens might now be in his 20s. Nick Cage is 106. No, it doesn't work for me. So I love you, Nick. So having the guy who's playing him now, and I'll admit I don't know who the actor is. And like I said, I've only seen the one scene where he actually gets in a fight with, boy, am I not up on my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whoever that is that he got in a fight with, and then he turned into Ghost Rider, and you go, oh, it's Ghost Rider, cool. And I like the scene.
Daisy/Quake is who he's fighting with.
Thank you.
I liked Ghost. I saw the episode. I really liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The first season, man, it took a while to get going, but once it got going, I really liked it.
They introduced Deathlock, one of my favorite characters who I never, ever thought would make it into any on-screen version, big screen, little screen, computer screen, look at my phone. I never thought he would be there, but he's on this show. I loved that.
This version of, and you probably picked up on it from the trailer, but this is Robbie Reyes. This is this is a different Ghost Rider iteration. This is the guy who drives around on the Charger instead of on the bike. Fitz, I like that version of Ghost Rider better anyway. I'm not really sure yet if it fits with S.H.I.E.L.D. I know in some ways it would work better if he was driving around Hell's Kitchen, and I know that's not where he's supposed to be. He's in L.A., but they change a lot of things in these things. I can see him working better in one of the Netflix series, perhaps, but
cross him over.
So far, and they may, you never know, but so far so good. I mean, the character's really interesting. I have a feeling because they have done really well since about the last 3 or 4 episodes of the first season. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. has done really well with their plot development, their characters. So I think they'll make it work. I was just surprised. It was like, Ghost Rider and S.H.I.E.L.D., what? But I think they will make this work out. So
I think one of the main reasons they brought him in was because of the movie coming out in November, Doctor Strange, where we start bringing magic into the whole Marvel Universe thing. And Ghost Rider, demonic magic, but it counts, I think. Close enough.
It does count, and that's why I wasn't sure how this would work with S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, they've had visitors from Asgard. Now, Asgard, they've explained as, it's the old Arthur C. Clarke is like, technology sufficiently advanced is going to look like magic to stupid people, meaning us. Right. So that's not what they're doing with Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider, he says, and it's not exactly a spoiler, he says, is like, I'm possessed by a devil. So he's going right with that, and they're approaching that head on. I do like that they're not changing the character to make it fit S.H.I.E.L.D. that way, because again, they're going to have to do that somehow with Doctor Strange, and maybe they'll just come up with, well, this is extra dimensional and blah blah blah, and that's probably what they will do. But they're not going that way with Robbie Reyes. They're just putting it right out there. It's like, hey, he's possessed.
There's a new TV spot for Doctor Strange where they talk about multiple dimensions. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, they're probably going with the multiple dimension aspect to get Doctor Strange into just in time for the Infinity War. Yay!
And
so that might be where they're going with that.
The cast in Doctor Strange is like, man, what a freaking amazing cast! They're not going to get any nominations, and I don't really care. But I mean, this is a cast that could get some Oscar nominations for a freaking comic book movie. I mean, holy cow, that movie's going to be fun.
That would work.
That movie's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that.
Yes.
And at this point, you're probably looking forward to dinner. Anything else you want to speak of, Rob? Since our half-hour show has gone close to an hour.
Yeah, I just looked at the clock and went, crap, really? No, let's see. Quick, I wanted to make an Emmy question to you. Make a question.
Make a question.
Throw a question in your general direction.
Make a question to me.
Because I looked at who was nominated for everything, and frankly, I didn't care about pretty much any of them. Luther and Sherlock I was interested in, and also Best Actor in the same category. Oh, look, it's Cumberbatch and Elba against each other. And I still don't know who won and don't care. I'll still watch the series regardless of who wins the award. But I did notice that Amy Schumer, right?
Yes.
Was nominated for Best Actress in the show Inside Amy Schumer. Mm-hmm. And that raised the question in my mind, what happened to the Dick Van Dyke Rule? And I don't know if you know about this or not. Because if you go back to the Dick Van Dyke Show, which I thought was brilliant.
One of my favorites.
Dick Van Dyke. Awesome. Never won an Emmy because there was a rule that said if your real name is in the name of the show, you can't even be nominated for an Emmy. So Dick Van Dyke could not be nominated for an Emmy on the Dick Van Dyke Show. Flash forward to now, Amy Schumer was nominated for an Emmy for Inside Amy Schumer, which made me wonder what the hell happened to this rule, and when is Dick Van Dyke going to receive his, I'm not going to say posthumous, he's not dead, ever so slightly delayed Emmys?
that's a stupid rule. So I'm glad that rule is done. Absolutely, because every once in a while I'll pop one of the Dick Van Dyke episodes on. Just matter of fact, 2 days ago I watched the final episode, which I don't remember ever seeing. So I watched the final episode, which it's really one of those compilation shows with a framing device, but it's definitely worth watching because it's a sweet movie. If you have Hulu, by all means, because it's available on Netflix and Hulu, but go to the listings on Hulu for the Dick Van Dyke Show. The pilot episode, not the first episode, but the pilot episode with a almost completely different cast is on Hulu. And it's episode 1, pilot. And Carl Reiner plays Rob Petrie. It's called Head of the Family. And he's a comedy writer for a different show. And, man, is it not funny. There are some jokes in there, but Carl Reiner Carl Reiner, he's really, really funny, but he is very different from Dick Van Dyke. The actress, I don't even know who the actress is, very different from Mary Tyler Moore. Carl Reiner, I believe, is the only actor who's a holdover. And, of course, Carl Reiner didn't even show up on camera for a few years anyway. They completely revamped it. It's the same concept, but they decided, if we're going to make a comedy, we should make it funny. So, by all means, watch that first episode, the pilot of the Dick Van Dyke Show. And on Hulu, it's listed as number 2, which is the actual first episode that everybody saw. How they watched, this is what's weird to me. Network executives watched that pilot, and they gave it a green light, but they said, replace everybody. And they did. So, very, very strange. Of them. Yeah, really. Exactly. It's not that it's bad. It's not bad, but it's kind of typical for 60s comedies. Like, remember when Nick at Night first started and they had a lot of shows that no one ever remembered because that's all they could afford? That's what it was, and that's what it would have been. And that cast, and the writing picked up too. But man, that cast absolutely, that's one of the transcendent TV series ever, is the Dick Van Dyke Show. And it's certainly different, and a lot of other characters, all the other actors in it. But it's really weird to see that pilot and see how that, I don't know what the time frame was, how long they had to completely rework the thing and turn Rob Petrie into Rob Petrie. Oh. Yeah, it's amazing how different the show is. It's like, wow, how they got from point A to point, I don't know, Q. Because it's not just one step different. It's really fun. And that's one of the cool things about these streaming services. There's this amazing stuff that's available now. I mean, wow, this is the golden age of entertainment. I don't know if you want to call it TV anymore, but there's so much cool stuff that you can see. It's fun to be able to talk about it with Rob Steele
and Todd Vandenberg.
And I think with that, we are out.
Sounds like a plan.
Ooh, that's a bingo.